Hannah, Laura, tell me all about your podcast, please.
Go on, Han.
Well, it's called the Proper Class Podcast. We like a title, so I think we sort of simultaneously thought of the title, and me and Laura have been we met doing theatre together years ago, and quickly became like best mates. Very quickly became best mates. And theatre is a brilliant thing. We both love it. Laura started in theatre. I still am a theatre director, but it's definitely still a very middle class pursuit. And so as two like working class women in theatre, we spoke about class a lot. I think we just naturally spoke about class a lot. We'd often find ourselves being the only women who spoke the way that we did in the rooms that we were in. And then, so over the years, we've spoken about it a lot. And then you read an article, didn't you, Laura, that...
Yeah, don't ask you where it was from. I can't remember now. But yeah, it said that it just had like this sort of like clickbait kind of title saying, working class people, something like this, not quote unquote, but working class people try to spend their life trying to run away from their own class. Was it that, Han? Was it like,
it's like trying to escape that? It's a lifelong thing to escape their working class roots, and
it just really got my goat. And I phoned her about it, and I just said, I don't try and escape my roots. Do you trying to escape being working class? And she's like, no, never. I'm really proud. We just had a sort of meeting of minds saying, I'm so fed up. I think that was kind of it really. And I sort of said to Han, should we do something about it? And we'd always sort of said like we wanted to do something talking to working class people, but we didn't know in what capacity that would be. And then we just sort of, and I think lockdown helped actually it gave us some time and some space to go, should we think of something? And my biggest thing, and I said to Hannah, is that what I want this to be is not a class bashing, but a celebration of working class. I think quite often there's a negative attachment to being working class,
and it's bleak, isn't it? A lot of the ways that working class culture is portrayed is bleak.
And I think we just wanted to do something positive with it, and we just wanted to, and maybe along the way challenge some preconceived ideas of what it was to be middle class, and just celebrate someone's success story, and then hopefully inspire a few along the way. So it sort of happened quite quickly. We put on Facebook if there's any female working class producers out there. Depressingly, only like one or two came back, but that would like to work with us. And we've just made it all sort of happen ourselves. And it's a labour of love. We don't earn any money out of it, but we get great joy from it. And I'll tell you what was really interesting, just the feedback that we've had, and people sort of saying like, it's so refreshing to hear working class women on a podcast. I'm so sick of hearing the sort of middle class woman on a podcast. So we knew a few might listen to it, but we didn't really think there'd be such a, it feels
engagement
like
with it,
and it would resonate so much, I guess. I feel like some people feel a bit starved of it. There is lots of working class things about, but so it just sort of took us by surprise that it would be so sort of, it would resonate so much, I guess.
I think that's something really nice. I mean, is it just people in acting that you speak to, or is it the creative industries?
No.
Like in general?
Yeah, no, not even just creative industries. So, for example, week before last, we had Jess Phillips, MP.
Oh, wow.
We've had Leanne Sanderson, footballer. So, I mean, me and Laura, because naturally we're in our second series now, we're just about to finish recording our second series, get started on the third in a few weeks, hopefully, which is amazing. But initially when we started, of course, Laura is a comedian and an actress, so she knows a lot of those people. I'm a theatre director. So between us, we know a lot of actors, comedians, writers. So when you're starting out, that was kind of an obvious route of people we knew who we could.
And to get people to listen, you need a few big hitters. So naturally, went to Romesh and Tom Davis and all the comedians that, I know have a big following. Just to bring a bit of attention
to get going, really.
And also they're amazing to talk to. But naturally that has happened a lot. The first series and a lot of the second series is sort of
actors,
kind of
comedians,
full of people
writers.
that we know, because podcasts, people are doing it for free, aren't they? And they've just got to care about the subject matter. And when we sent an email to Jess Phillips, PA, we just thought, well, she's either going to dig this or she isn't, and she did, and she cared loads about it, and she had a lovely time, and we couldn't believe our luck when she said yes, I'll be honest.
But it's getting easier because now we've got truth is we're at the end of our second series, we're much better than we were when we started.
Yeah, but do you not think that there's something nice about that? I mean, I'm a podcaster. I've got no background in anything as a broadcast in any way, shape, or form. And I listen back to some of my early podcasts, and I'm all over the place. But I quite like the fact that it's quite punk podcasting, isn't it? There's no rules. It's quite DIY. You can just press record. Anyone can do it.
Yeah, and I think we learned that. I think for me as an actor, I was like, oh no, let's edit the fuck out of it. And sorry, can I swear? Sorry.
Yeah.
Because as an actor, I need everything to be perfect and just as. But as time's gone on, I've realised that what really resonates with people is it feeling like we're sat around having a cup of tea and a chat to like-minded people and friends.
I think what's been really nice as well is early on, I think we edited ourselves out a lot.
Yeah.
Like, oh, we're a bit stumbly here, or that doesn't sound. And actually,
I'm talking about myself here. Yeah.
And people started sending little messages in and tweeting us a lot, and we got quite a lot of industry feedback and stuff. Not that we were seeking it just started to happen, and people going, oh, we really love listening to the two of you talk, you're really warm together, and we quite like each other. And so we got a bit more confident in that, and a bit more relaxed and a bit less structured. And it is literally like we're doing now, we just sit and talk to our guests, and it is really relaxed, and it's hopefully sort of we always wanted to say it's like you're having a cup of tea with a mate, was the vibe that we wanted. So hopefully that's starting to feel like that now.
They're the podcasts that I listen to. I want to feel like I'm in a room, and certainly if the hosts have a connection, because you can't fake that.
No.
I think it comes across. You mentioned Tom and Rom as well. I listen to Wolf now, because they're people that, and as well as that, they talk like I talk, and it's quite nice to hear similar accents.
Of course it is. And that's the thing, isn't it? And I think that's what really resonates. We've had so many working class women contact us that have said they've never really listened to a podcast, but might have just listened to it because they liked King Gary or whatever. And then there's been people that have said, oh, I don't really usually listen to podcasts, but I really like this one. And it's just and I love that too. I love a podcast where I like two-shot podcasts as well, where that just feels like they're sat down, it's not edited, they're having a cup of tea and having a chat and being really open and honest. And the guests that we've had on, like Vicky McClure, we've had on, and it was just sat down, and feels like you just chat with your mates, and people loved those episodes. And and Hannah and I have known each other a very, very long time, so everything on there is genuine, and I hope that comes across.
We did this little bonus ep, which is about 25 minutes, is it, Laura? Which is just me and Laura talking to each other, just as a companion episode really to the first series, to say this is who we are and this is our background and this is why we've done it. And over time, it's picking up quite a nice, people have gone back and really started to listen to it. We thought just our mums had listened to that one particularly, but over time, as more and more people listening to the podcast, they've gone back and listened to that, and it's such a lovely thing that and people are engaging with it. It's lovely.
Got us thinking, didn't it, Han? We'd like to do a bit more of that. We want to do one with our mum and dad. And
probably be the start of the third series, won't it?
And I think the big thing for us is we want to talk to more, we want to reach more people. It is hard to we're trying to get out of the creative sector a bit more, and interview a wider range of guests, but as you know,
that's definitely happening, isn't it? It's starting to happen.
It's definitely happening, and that's something we aim to do. And we've even talked about interviewing some real folk as well, which we'd love to do at some point. Working class hero of the week, a nurse or something, it's all there to be had. But it's I didn't realize how important it was, and it is. It sounds silly, doesn't it? But I don't think we celebrate being working class enough. I
don't celebrate it. That's the thing. We kind of hide it a bit sometimes. Do you know what I mean? It's it's certainly from my experience in creative industries, it always seemed to be the people whose parents had a few bob could not have to get a job and could be rehearsing in their band every day, whereas I had to go to work and then I'd have to rehearse in the evening. And I guess it's that, I've got friends that tried to make it in acting but couldn't get to all of the castings and stuff because they had to have a job.
It's something we cover on the podcast all the time about working class creatives, especially not having the space to really create and get better and hone their craft, and there's certainly Hannah and I talk about it all the time. If I was able back then, now I have the luxury of doing it now, but had I been able to do what I do now and have the space for it, I'd have been much further along in my game than I am now.
I think we talk about that money thing, don't we? It's probably the thing, like our guests have been very diverse in background, so we've gone from Romesh to Sue Pollard and Jess Phillips to
Candice Brown,
who won Bake Off. But the one thing that definitely unites absolutely everyone is the herd from a working class background is the hurdle of money, of financial, of having to earn a living. And that is the one thing that I think all those people have in common, that early part of the graft you have to do alongside that if you aren't from
just to get on a level playing field with
just unbelievable. We were speaking to Tom Mayhew, brilliant guest, a couple of weeks ago, and he was just talking about the fact that when he finally got in a writer's room, he couldn't afford a laptop. And there's all of his other writers in the writers' room with their lovely Apple Macs. He had to borrow it off his girlfriend. And all he was thinking is, this is the most expensive thing I've ever had in my bag. And he couldn't really relax and write because he was just so worried about breaking his girlfriend's laptop. And they're funny stories and we all laugh about it because we've all been there. But it is just starting to talk a little bit about sort of social diversity. If you want diverse voices of all sorts within the creative arts, then you have to acknowledge that it is not a level playing field to even get started, let alone stay there. And so that's been, to hear people with a high level of success now saying it's only recently that they've had financial stability, I think is actually a really important thing for people to admit to and say out loud.
You've mentioned a lot of amazing guests. If people listen to this podcast and they're yet to check out the podcast, and you had to, I'm going to ask you to pick your favourite child now, and you had to say, look, this episode, when we finished it, we both thought, God, that was perfect. And I'm not suggesting that's taking anything away from the rest of them. By all means, say start at the very beginning and work your way through. But if you feel there's one episode that you think, do you know what, if you're going to give it a go here first, because this really captures it.
I'll go. I know. We actually just did it. A great friend of mine, writer, recent BAFTA winner, Kaylee Llewellyn, who wrote In My Skin. It's a true depiction of her life, In My Skin, and she got a BAFTA, 2 BAFTAs for it, Best Drama and Best Writer. And for me, and I said this when we were recording the podcast, for me, she's sort of the epitome of working class, done good, what she had. I mean, and we said this on the podcast, she really, really, without spoiling the podcast, so I want people to listen, she really came from sort of beyond nothing, a very, very, very tough background. Not even the fact that she didn't really have any money or prospects or a way of getting to where she is. And she is just won a BAFTA. I mean, it's an emotional listen, and it's an inspiring one for any young creative out there, writer, performer, whatever, for anyone youngster that wants to, that's having a difficult time and thinks they're stuck. It's just, for me, it was Vicky McClaw's EP before that, but Kaylee came in and just blew it out the water. It was for me, that was this is exactly what I wanted our podcast to be. It's funny and it's emotional and all of that.
Wonderful.
Hannah?
I would agree, actually, but as a sort of second favourite child, Vicky McClaw's is amazing, but for me it was just a huge moment to have Jess Phillips on, because when we first spoke about doing the podcast, she was right up there for me, because if in any way it's sort of a thing to hear me and Laura with our accents talking on a podcast, for me, hearing Jess Phillips speaking with our accent, well, she's a Brummie, but a working class accent, in the Houses of Parliament, and the grief that she gets from the opposition, particularly the male opposition. You know, she lives with constant threats, hundreds a week of sexual violence. She lives with hundreds of threats a week of death whenever she tries to sort of like raise the profile of like particularly protecting young women and girls against domestic violence and sexual violence. And she's really bloody funny at the same time.
Really funny.
She is still herself. She's absolutely connected to where she grew up. She still lives there. And I just think to really maintain your roots in that way and be a national figure, she's a huge inspiration to me. So I'd agree with Laura, but I'd throw Jess Phillips in there as well.
Jess Phillips at PM, way
100%.
And moving forward, I mean, you say there's another series going to be recorded soon. Live shows, you considered that?
We just did our first one, yeah.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, so it all happened by mistake. We weren't really ready, in all honesty, but it went all right. So
it was great. I loved it.
We got approached, by Hoxton Hall. They do a working class season, and someone working there had come across our podcast and passed it on to the woman that ran this working class season. And she said, do you want to come on and have a chat? Initially it was like just a panel chat talking about being working class in the podcast. We went, better still, we'll do a live one for you. We were like, just go for it. And it happened, and that's how we kick off series 2 actually, with stand-up comedian Darren Harriott.
Wonderful. So did you get a bit of a flavour for that? Can I do some more?
Loved it. It was brilliant.
Hannah was like, we should do this every week.
It was like being down at, do you know what it felt like? There was loads of working class people in the audience, and it felt like I've got a real beef about, we often talk about beef of the week because I've always got beef about something, but I've got real beef about the fact that so much working class culture, which was like live working class culture, is now all moved online or onto, television. If you think about like old working men's clubs and stuff where we had Les Dennis on as a guest, that's how he started out, Sue Pollard started out. Those places don't really exist anymore, and instead you've got like Britain's Got Talent and all of those things, and they're all great, but everything's online. Even like old bingo halls and stuff where people meet, mostly it's like online. So it was just amazing to be in a room of like working class people all celebrating a similar thing, and it felt brilliant, didn't it? It was just absolutely, I mean, I'm a theatre director, so I've got no right sitting up on a stage doing anything live. But,
you was better than me. I was really nervous. You were very funny.
Well, I beg to differ, but it was brilliant. It was a really warm and lovely thing, and I don't think, maybe there's a sort of, sometimes think, we could go up and do like one live one at Edinburgh or something as a one-off, or it was really lovely. It was a brilliant thing, so never say never.
I got one last question for you, right? Bucket list guests. Who's at the top of the list? Who'd be the dream guest?
Oh, we know.
Ready?
One each,
but we've got the same.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
definitely.
Well, it's Kathy Burke. Come on.
The Queen.
Oh, wonderful.
The Queen.
It's definitely Kathy Burke. There's tons that we've got on the bucket list. I'd love to interview Rylan. I'd love to talk to Rylan.
I'd really like to talk to Stacey, like a Solomon, who I think is such an interesting woman. She gets
lived at the end of me road.
Does she?
She's
Can you
not
sort
anymore.
that out for us, please?
It's like,
can you just nip along? Yeah.
It was so weird. She ended up living with me, my mate's brother, and she was with him for years and years and years, and they got children together and stuff. And it was so weird doing the school run. It was like Stacey Solomon's doing the school run.
Do you know what though? She's a really good example for me. She gets such grief if you watch her. Whenever she has a political opinion, people are affronted by it. Like she doesn't have the right to have a political opinion. And I'm not at home often enough to watch Loose Women, but when I've caught it, she's on there. She's very erudite, and I get very excited by listening to erudite working class people, because I think in itself that's quite a political thing, because people just don't expect it, and she gets so much grief for just daring to have a political opinion. I'm a huge fan of hers, actually. I think she's amazing.
Yeah, same.
But just in case she's listening, Kathy Burke for Queen.
Thanks loads for coming on the podcast today, ladies. The podcast is available on all the usual places, right?
Yeah, it is indeed. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Hannah, Laura, thanks so much.
Oh, thanks for having us.
Thanks, Stu.